Greetings and welcome. My name is Jake Rayson. I am a forest gardener and a forest garden designer. And this is the regular forest garden live stream slot. Originally started about over a year and a half ago, something crazy, long time ago in modern times. So every week I just talk about various different topics related to forest gardening. And this week I wanted to share a bit of news with you and also talk about gardening with wildflowers, with native wildflowers. And before I start, just a couple of thank yous. A big thank you to everybody on the Forest Garden group. There's a Telegram Forest Garden group. I wanted to say thank you to everyone for that. It is. I did not imagine when I started a year or so ago doing the live streams that a group would come out from it. And it would be such a lovely group, and it would be such a nice bunch of people, just really supportive, very diverse, very different sized gardens, different people, very different, coming from different angles, but all really good bunch. So thank you for being there and doing forest garden stuff, each and every one of you in your own separate and delightful ways. And then a big thank you to Chris as well for supplying the photographs. So she very kindly, Chris from the Forest Garden group, Telegram group, has sent me a whole stack of gorgeous photographs. I've got a few of them here in the slideshow. So when I'm going to be talking today, I will be interspersing it with nice photos. So I really appreciate that. Okay, the talk, this particular talk, there's a few links in here, will always be at forestgarden.wales/talks/garden wildflowers. And if you press P, it brings up the notes. So there's some extra kind of links and names and things in there. Okay, and yeah, let's get cracking. So this is Fox and Cubs, which is a UK native wildflower. Absolutely stunning. We don't have any growing around here. I've seen it. I saw it. I've seen it out and about the place, but not around here. Stunning. Why should I grow UK native wildflowers in the UK? There you go. That's the reason why you should. So the outline for today is a reminder. Interspersed and throughout there will be some beautiful photographs. Looking at forest gardens and the kind of the idea behind forest gardening, I think it's just worth revisiting. I kind of come back to it time and again, but it's worth revisiting just because you get the idea of why native wildflowers make so much sense in a forest garden. I mean, there's lots of different reasons, but if you look at the reasoning, the push, the dynamic, the raison d'etre of forest gardening, UK native wildflowers, wherever you are in the world, native wildflowers make a lot of sense. And then I'll look at the case for using native plants, and then I will look at reference for UK native specific. These kind of references will be duplicated throughout the world, not replicated throughout the world, and different countries and different bioregions will have reference material, so you just have to find. Sorry, I can't do it for the entire world. I'll just be doing the reference for the UK, and then finally I'll be looking at the Garden Wild project that I've been running. So, pig nuts. This is a photograph from Chris. This is pig nuts and bluebells, and yes, just an absolutely stunning photograph and just really lovely. Member of the carrot family. Pig nuts. I've never eaten them. To be honest, I'm kind of dubious. I must have seen them, but I've never tried digging for them or identifying them properly. And bluebells as well. So the first thing we're going to look at is the reminder. There is a climate emergency, and I think it's just kind of worth coming back to this. There's the my reason for doing forest gardening really was initially motivated not from a love of plants, but from a desire to actually do something about the climate and ecological and climate emergency, and a way of engaging with a way of taking action. And yeah, so there has just been so much going on. There's been wildfires in Siberia, a heat dome in Canada and Northwest America, floods in, I think, in Central Africa, floods in China, floods in India, floods in Germany. It's been pretty grim, really. And then there's planned oil fields off the northwest coast of Scotland in the UK, and there was a planned coal mine in Cumbria. So there is a lot of there's a lot of crap going down. So we do need to do what you can. And this absolutely stunning photograph, I think it's from CBS News, is just incredible. The whole side of the hill has just disappeared. So just this is coming, and this can happen in a lot of different places. So there's kind of extremes of weather across the globe. There is no point hiding. There is no point. We need to tackle it full on. Anyway, so that's not a bad news, but that's what we're dealing with. And it's worth bearing in mind that you do need to have some positivity and some good in the world. And why not have fun with the climate emergency? Enjoy yourself and do good. They are not mutually incompatible about enjoying yourself and doing good for the world. I think it's worth emphasising. This is a greater stitch word. I think it's worth emphasising that every single kind of intervention that you do for a wildlife garden, and by extension, in my definition, a forest garden, is you are benefiting some life forms. Yep. So whatever it is that you do, the little that you do, it makes a difference, and everybody makes a difference. It might not seem it in the grand scheme of things, but just actually look in front of your eyes and look at the wildlife that you bring to your garden, and it makes a difference. And we can have fun whilst doing this. Yep, it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. I mean, it's pretty doomy and it's pretty gloomy, but we ain't going to change things by sitting around being doomed and gloomed. We need to have positive action, and this really kind of sums up for me what's behind it, the beauty that is in the natural world and how we can live with it and interact with it. So I'm going to move on to a forest garden, looking at what a forest garden, just going to check I am streaming, that's good. So a forest garden, I think it's worth looking at the definition of a forest garden. So the subtitle, I meant to get all the books down. I never did do it. So yeah, if you're starting off forest gardening, growing edible crops, it's working with nature to grow edible crops. And that's the subtitle of Martin Crawford's seminal book, Creating a Forest Garden. Really good guide. Gives you an overview of the different stages of creating a forest garden, and also a whole list of different species in that forest garden. I also have a spreadsheet, bit.ly/forest-garden-spreadsheet. That's an online sortable spreadsheet of all the plants in this book. So when it comes to planning your forest garden and thinking about what plants you'd like, it's a really good resource, because you can sort things by different plants by different criteria. So that is at the heart of it, is working with nature. And if you can see, this is a photograph. This is a still from Thomas Ray. Sorry Thomas if I pronounce your name really badly. It's a French name, Regnault, who did a lovely, beautiful short film for the National Geographic, Martin Crawford's garden. And this is a still from that short film. And as you can see, what you're doing, you're emulating the edge of a woodland. A forest garden is a garden. It is a managed space, but there's far less work involved with it. But there is still work involved. You can't just step back and let everything do its thing. You do need to get involved, pull up tree saplings, bramble, keep the paths clear, but it's low maintenance compared to a normal garden. You have living ground cover. You have using all different layers in the garden, and critically, you're treating everything holistically. So you have a natural pest control. So you want things to, it might sound counterintuitive, but you actually want wildlife to eat your plants, because by doing that it introduces predators to predate the pests, quote unquote. And by having a balance between the predators, the pests and the predators, then there's less damage done. So you do suffer some damage, but there isn't the onslaught on with any. There's no chemicals involved in controlling any pests. So it's a natural pest control, and it's natural fertility as well. So you're planting plants which provide nitrogen and potassium for the garden as a whole, and biomass as well. So essentially what you're doing is creating an edible ecosystem. So I think this is really, really critical. It's an ecosystem. This is what you want to be doing. You want to create something that is as self-sustaining as possible with a minimum amount of management when you've got the garden. So yeah, it's a really, really exciting, really, really kind of exciting venture to get to take part in. This is Ramson's Allium ursinum wild garlic. It does kind of spread. So it will multiply and fill up an area. Comes out in flowers in spring. So it's actually it's a really good ground cover in certain places. Smells of garlic. You can eat the leaves. You just cook them very briefly. But yes, it's a fantastic forest garden plant in the right place. I like a lot of plants. I'm not sure, it might be invasive in other countries. And for forest gardening, for me, really it's about it's what I call intersectional gardening. So it lies between, like, there's wildlife gardening, there's vegetable gardening, and there's ornamental gardening. And a forest garden can sit in between all of those. It's right smack bang in the middle, and this is what is so attractive about it. I mean, in some respects you can say it's quite niche. It's quite not many people know about it, so there's quite a lot of explaining to do, but it is the natural it's a natural course of travel to my mind, the natural course of travel where we should be headed for gardening. It makes an awful lot of sense. Yep. So if you're going to grow edible crops, these are the methods that you can use to grow them. If you're going to have a wildlife garden, well, incorporate that into growing edible crops. If you're going to have an ornamental garden, grow edible edimentals, as Stephen Barstow calls them on edimentals.com. And you can grow in that for all of these, for the ornamental, the edible, the useful, the wildlife, all of these different aspects of a forest garden. You can grow native plants, because pretty much every single UK native wildflower that I've come across, apart from, there's only one that I can think of, that is on Plants for a Future, a fantastic resource, pfaf.org. Fantastic resource, online resource for edible and useful plants. And every single UK native wildflower is on there. So it has some sort of use, whether herbal, medicinal, edible, hedging, whatever. It's got, every single plant has something going for it, and it supports wildlife. And pretty much every single plant can be treated as an ornamental, depending upon how you use it and where you use it as well. So oxeye daisies, I love this photograph. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, just beautiful, really, really lovely. It looks like there's some sheep sorrel there and some grasses, and it's brilliant, lovely. So the case for using native plants. I didn't mean to get all these. I didn't mean to get all these books down. I never did. I'll get that one while I'm at it. Here we go. So the case for UK native plants is this Benjamin Volk's book, A New Garden Ethic. I actually haven't read this for a while. I must kind of reread it. It's really, really good, because it's kind of, it's looking at the philosophy and the ideas behind it, essentially saying that we've got to look at how humans treat the world, and if you treat the world hierarchically as though we are the apex, we are the ultimate product of evolution, and therefore we have a dominion across the world, that's really not going to work out for everybody. So we need to take a far more humble and far more measured and equal reassessment of human role in the world, and not have don't think it's a God-given right to do what we want. It's much more about what do we do, how does it affect other life as well. And the basic idea about using, so there's an awful lot of that's covered in Benjamin Vogg's book. So, and I really like him. And what I particularly like is that he's really he's a really good gardener, and I really like his gardens. And he does kind of prairie gardens because that's where he lives, and those are the native plants. So he's using lots of asters and milkweed and I think echinacea. So that, he's using the native plants where he is, but ornamentally, and I think it's and grasses and all sorts. So it's beautiful, really, really beautiful. So it's kind of really inspirational. Not that I can look at his planting plans and go, I'll have that one, that one, and that one, that one, because they're all North American natives, but because of the inspiration just for it can be done. You can have an ornamental native plant garden quite easily, quite easily. It does mean changing a lot of things, how you approach plants. You look at the plants in the round, and you've got to be, in some respects, it is harder because you've got to be far more judicious in your choice of plants, so that they kind of work to get them to work together. Traditionally, the kind of ornamental kind of fashion, it is kind of harder, but it gets you thinking, and it gets you examining plant communities and interactions with ecosystems as well. So the basic idea is that native plants co-evolved with native wildlife. Did I write this down? Oh, I did write it down, yeah. So there's, for example, there's a buddleia. Buddleia is not a UK native, but they kind of do very well in the UK, and they're called the butterfly bush because butterflies will feed on them on their nectar and I think they just eat nectar, but nothing eats buddleias. Doesn't have any native pests as far as I know. So the flowers are kind of useful, but they don't provide food for insects, and I think this is the absolutely key thing. They miss out a vital component. You can say, oh wow, look at all the butterflies on there, and you go, yeah, but you could have a plant there instead which feeds butterflies but also provides leaf food for insects. And it's the same thing. There's grasses that you can grow that do provide habitat, but there will, and I don't know this, but there will be grasses that don't have any natural predators in the UK, non-native grasses. There will be there's the pheasant berry. Can't remember the botanical name for it, which we got a couple kicking around, which have edible fruit, and pheasants like them, hence the name pheasant berry. Can they taste like burnt toffee, which is very odd flavour. But again, they probably, I don't know for sure, but they probably don't have any interactions. Like nothing probably eats the leaves. So yeah, you got to look at it. You got to look at the plant in the round, and you really need to be concentrating on feeding the insects, because insects are an integral part of the food web. I listened to a podcast, Growing Greener podcast, yesterday, and there's a statistic about the number of birds. I think it's 90% of native birds, 90% of native insects use native plants. So this is in North America, so I don't know what the figures are for the UK, but 90% of native insects eat or use or dependent upon in some way native plants. And you have generalists which can adapt to non-native plants as well. So there is that kind of aspect of it. And then 100% of birds at some stage eat insects. So whether that's for the young or whether it's particular times of year. So it's kind of, insects are fundamentally important, and you want things to be eating your plants. Again, this seems counterintuitive, but you want insects to eat your plants so that then they can feed the birds. A couple of days ago, we've got some tansy. Can't remember the name of the botanical name. It's like little yellow buttons, golden buttons is another name for it. Relation Tanacetum. Can't remember the botanical name. And there was a wren, tiny, looked maybe possibly like a baby wren, but from the feathers that it's got on it. But a baby wren was eating like aphids off the tansy, right in front of us, making loads of noise and just chattering away and just eating. You could just see it pecking stuff off of the stem. And yeah, that's a classic case in point. Native plant covered in aphids or something that the wren was eating. So we want to convert sunlight into insects. That's the whole kind of purpose of this. So Benjamin Volk, there's the links here to his website and also to his book as well. And the other person as well, who I must be honest, I haven't read his bloody books, and I kind of keep meaning to, but lots going on. Doug Tallamy, who's been a professor, I think it's Professor Doug Tallamy, who started off as an entomologist and has written various books, North America again, but about using native plants in your garden. So again, really inspirational. Two kind of very inspirational figures. There are an awful lot more as well. There's lots of people out there. So these are just a couple of people that I've come across and I've read, but there are lots of people out there. So please do look. And so the idea is fill your garden with life. That's what we're going for. That's the idea. Fill it with life. I don't know 1/10% of the wildlife interactions in the gardens we have here, but there's an awful lot going on. You don't have to know about them. I mean, it's good to find out about them, but you don't have to know about them to start the process. It's a transition. It's like moving into a different way of gardening and moving into a different way of learning about what is around you and the wildlife that you have about the place. And then another photograph from Chris, thank you Chris, which is self-heal and red clover. Is that Prunella vulgaris? And I can't remember what red clover is. Oh, never mind. Anyway, so onto the reference. Yeah, just that'll be humming with life. Onto the reference. This is a brilliant book, Harrop's Wildflowers. So I've got my copy here. Kind of recommend it. I'm creating a garden for a client over in Carmarthenshire, and this is kind of really invaluable. What I have found is that there aren't really any kind of ornamental wildflower books for the UK. They're all kind of based in the US, so there is quite a few. I've got one. What the hell was it called? Planting Wild. Oh god, it's gone somewhere. There's one which is there's the kind of ornamental books, but they tend to use plants ornamentally, and they're not native. There are some natives in there, but no, they're not native. So there's a Sheffield School of Gardening, and it's very kind of focused on the ornamental side, rather than. I think what you need to be doing is to look at it from a wildlife and from a native plant point of view, and then that's your kind of basis. Not to say you can't have non-natives, and like in a forest garden there's a whole load of non-natives, but the beauty of a forest garden is that there's all the space in between for ground cover, for windbreaks, for hedges, for all types of shrubs, that you can use native plants in there. So like try and get the bulk of the bulk of the biomass in your garden, get to have native plants. And then there's a couple of very kind of useful links here as well. Don't have any. I won't go on to them because my computer's really slow, so it will slow it down. There's Plant Atlas, which is from oh goodness me, what the hell is it called? There's a Botanical Society of Britain and Ireland, and it's to do with them. But yes, so that gives you the kind of botanical aspect on every single UK native species and some non-natives as well. That gives a botanical aspect to it. Which is a good reference just for like the kind of technical aspects of a plant. Not that many photos, unfortunately. And then there's Plants for a Future, the website I talked about before, kind of staple forest garden reference. But also, as I was saying, there's so many wildflowers which are on there as well. Less useful, but still useful nonetheless, is Native RHS Plant Finder. There's a filter which I've clicked on this link here. there is a filter where if you look on the RHS, you can search just for UK and Irish native plants. And then to find out more about the interactions between native plants and insects, there's the Database of Insects and Food Plants, DBIF, and that's really brilliant. That just kind of gives you a list of this is what eats this plant, and there's a massive list of different insects that eat them. And then finally, there's Garden Wild, which is my own kind of side project that I want to talk to you about in a minute as well. So these are all fantastic references. I really, really want somebody to write a book about designing ornamental gardens with UK native wildflowers. No one's written it yet. I'm trying to persuade Sarah Wilson, the blog, the podcaster and garden designer. I'm trying to persuade her to write one, but she hasn't yet, so I need to get on the case with that one. And here's some roseberry willow herb, UK native, very beautiful and edible. You can make roseberry willow herb, I think you make a syrup from it. I'm not terribly sure. Yeah, so it's all kind of exciting stuff. So let's move on to Garden Wild. And this is Garden Wild. I set up a community interest company, which is like a non-profit organisation, to promote the use of UK native wildflowers in ornamental gardening. That's the whole purpose of it. And I made a grant application, and it's the first time. Well, it's the first time I've ever started a grant application with poetry. And I think it's so spot on. This is from T.S. Eliot, Little Gidding. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. And I think that's just so beautiful, and it's just about being aware of what is in front of you, and it applies so. I think it applies so poetically to horticulture in the UK specifically as well, that it's always going out and exploring different plants and looking at different places, and then finally we come back to where we came from, where we started, and look at the beautiful wildflowers that we have right beneath our noses. So this is a photograph from a field in Herefordshire. So Garden Wild, gardenwild.org.uk, ornamental wildflower gallery. And the idea was to get some money. Made a grant application to the Finis Scott Foundation to get some money for buying plants, doing the design, and taking photographs of plant communities in an ornamental setting. So it's easier to make it easier for gardeners, for traditional ornamental gardeners, to use UK native wildflowers, and then alongside that use open source, open license reference photographs as well, from places like Wikipedia. And yeah, that's the idea. And then this is just a little prototype that I created with the corn cockle. You put together the photographs, and you can organise them in different ways. So you can organise them by plant communities, you can organise them by habitat, you can organise them by what's flowering that month, and it's just taking those photographs and providing inspiration for people, because I've got this job to do, which is really, really exciting, and I'm going to be using UK native wildflowers, but I don't have the reference for it. I mean, I'm going to have to, I'll have to look at what people have out there, and then look at what's out there in traditional ornamental gardening, and then say, okay, what's the native what native plant can I swap in there for the same effect, for the same situation. So it's quite a lot more work for me to do that. There isn't a book that I can pick off the shelf and go, oh yeah, of course, Ragged Robin will work really well if I put it in with some ferns because it likes these conditions, but this particular type of fern, and the pink offsets against the green background. There's none of that. There isn't the kind of, I can put these combinations together. So that was a whole purpose behind it, and found out a few days ago that Finis Scott Foundation said no, they're not going to fund the project. So I'm a bit gutted actually, because I have spent weeks, quite literally weeks, putting the application together. If you're interested in the application, give us a shout, and I'll send you a copy of it, just because it's kind of interesting. But and they even asked me for an update because I missed the deadline. They even asked me for an update on the project, so I kind of sent them the prototype. I sent them a video. I sent them the data structures and how the website would be organised and how it would be created, and the social media campaigns and how they would work and what platform they'd use, and nothing. Absolutely. Well, there we go. Anyway, so if you do know anybody, I've been in touch with Botanic Garden Wales, just see if anyone's interested there, and also Plant Life as well, because I will, I'll just do it in my spare time, but to be honest, I don't have much spare time, so it's not really going to get done any kind of time soon, but I'll just keep soldiering away and making grant applications as well. So if you do know of anybody who would be interested in giving me loads of money, let me know and I will build it. There we go. Ragged Robin. Stunning. Oh, I love it. It's a beautiful photograph as well. This one is from from Wikipedia, this particular photograph. Anyway, that's Garden Wild spreadsheet. Just to let you know as well, this is a spreadsheet which rather like the Forest Garden spreadsheet. This spreadsheet it's one I'm creating for my own purposes for the project, but some people might find it useful, and it just gives you like the flowering periods and the colour, and it's kind of incomplete, but there's still flowers I'd like to add to it, but it's got a fair old few on there. So if you are interested in using wildflowers, that might be a kind of good resource for you. bit.ly garden-wild-spreadsheet, and I'll be using it myself when I'm doing garden designs for quick reference. Okay, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Do send me an email if you're interested in getting kind of garden design sorted out. I do wildlife and forest garden design, so do send me an email if you're interested in using my services, and there's a link here for the newsletter as well. So hope you enjoyed all that, and I shall see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.